Hello, my name is Jamie Braniff, and this is a review of my placement year as a freelancer under independent study. My main role this year's independent study was spent as a technical designer. As a technical designer, my responsibility was to develop the core building blocks of the game being the mechanics. This is a role I wanted to focus on, and I've developed many new skills in my specialization this year. This is thanks to my main projects and other projects, which include online courses and game jams. As well as becoming a better technical designer, I've also expanded my skill set, such as my general skill set and networking in industry. These are primary projects I've focused on this year. These were projects I worked on to focus my abilities as a technical designer while seeking freelance opportunities. While I was unable to get any professional placement this year, I was still able to develop my skills further through independent projects. These projects include Phoenix Fighter, Stranded, and Climb and Slime. Phoenix Fighter is a 3D arena fighter project which I worked on solo to learn how to make combo attack systems. This was a short-term project which turned into a long-term project because of the scale of the project. I also developed other aspects of the game, such as level design, UI design, and particle effects. The first few weeks were spent on pre-production to get a solid idea of the game pillars, gameplay loop, and target audience. This included many aspects such as combat, types, and elements. Although, because of the overscope in the project, it transitioned from a multiplayer arena fighter to a single-player arena fighter beat 'em up. The narrative idea was you play as the Dojo Master's successor and prove your strength. I researched into fighter archetypes to get an understanding of classes in fighting games, such as Street Fighter and Tekken, which use rushdowns, Shoto classes, and grappler classes. The main mechanics for Phoenix Fighter are attacking, blocking, and movement. I created the combo attacks as a way to attack the enemy with combos of 5 attacks. Blocking would be how you guard from the enemy's attacks. This affects the blocking bar, which decreases with each attack, and the player will become stunned. Movement includes the player's run, dash, and double jump. The player can dash through crates, rings, and away from enemies. The double jump can get away, it's for so you can get away from high places. I did research into Japan's architecture and got an understanding of all the types of areas in the Japanese village with a dojo. This included areas such as shrines, housing areas, main dojos, barracks, and a courtyard. I used the mountain landscape for the background to give the atmosphere that it was Japan, since they're known for their high mountains such as Mount Fuji. For the art style, I wanted to originally create 6 initial characters. However, I only was able to create 3. I was unable to get character designs worked on as it would have been too little time for the project. So I actually used models from Mixamo Fit style instead. I made some particle effects with Niagara emitters in Unreal Engine from learning about a VFX course on Udemy. This was able to develop my skills for game feel, for making my mechanics feel much more dynamic and presentable. This added much more player agency to the mechanics, which was good. I was able to add ranged projectiles into the game, such as fireballs, which would be thrown from a distance. I also added enemy behaviors, which would tell the enemy to attack the player while other enemies waited. I also implemented user interface menus controllable with controllers. I learned how to create fighting combos using anim montages and integers to progress through a combo. I learned more about complex enemy AI behavior trees. I learned more about enumerations and how they can be used. I learned more about blocking systems, and I learned more about projectile attacks. This is another project I worked on during independent study. This solo project was called Climb and Slime. It was a puzzle platformer which helped build my skills as a technical designer. The puzzles included wall climbing, attacking, and changing form to solve puzzles. The ideation came from another brainstorm on another project. We were discussing ideas, and I came up with a snail puzzle platformer. I wanted it to rely on the player switching weight to affect the mechanics differently. This made for some creative ideas such as wall climbing and attacks. The main mechanics are wall climbing, attacking, and changing form. I created the wall climbing as a way to climb along walls to find mushrooms to bounce off, and I also created the attack, which is for defeating enemies in a room to progress. Changing form allows the player to switch between shell mode and snail mode, which both have their benefits and drawbacks. Different abilities include wall climbing, digging, different attacks such as the slam attack and the Beyblade attack, damage resistance, and making the character change mass. The levels for Climb and Slime are going to be box style rooms where the player has to solve the puzzle by activating a switch or defeating enemies. In addition to this, I added foliage and a unique sky sphere to the level to make it feel much more cartoony. I was able to create a critical hit system for the attack, which had 1 in 10 odds of doing really high damage. I also created mushroom springs, which would launch the character around the level. And I also created enemy turrets, which would fixate on the player and attack on a timer. I learned more about lerps and how they can move objects in the level, such as my crates. I learned how to make custom animations, such as by digging. I learned about multi-sphere traces and timers for my Beyblade attack. I originally created a super galaxy wall climbing system which uses planet gravity, although this didn't work too well with my game. So I instead opted for ray tracing climbing, which I learned about both. Also learned about how to change relative rotation of the mesh according to player movement. This is another project I worked on called Stranded. This was a group project, which was an experimental sandbox survival, which taught me about inventory systems. The player would explore the level looking for supplies to help the shipwrecked crew. Foraging will be how you collect items around the map, and unfortunately, this was our only mechanic due to time constraints. So, however, I was able to make a fully functioning inventory system. Our idea came from an explorer expedition idea that we had mixed with Kalina's narrative idea, our team member. So we compromised the two ideas together to create a survival island game. You play as Grace, a girl who helps a shipwrecked crew repair their ship. We used Miro boards for planning, mechanics, level design, art style, and character inspiration. Our mechanics were going to be foraging, crafting, horse riding, and attacking. However, foraging was the only mechanic we were able to make, although the crafting system would have crafted new items for the ship. An attacking mechanic would have attacked enemies which had certain items, and horse riding would have been how you traverse around the map. Due to time constraints, we were unfortunately only able to code the foraging mechanic as we see here. This includes picking up items such as berries, wood planks, and cloth. These items are all collected and stored in the inventory. The inventory exists as a print string, as we were unable to create any inventory UI. However, I learned about making new functions for the inventory system, such as adding and reallocating slots. I focused on level design, which I did planning for, and was able to make a level blockout as well as a top-down map, bubble diagrams, and level design references for each area. With more time, I feel confident our level blockout and mechanics would have been much more fleshed out. However, due to time constraints, this was unfortunately not the case. Kalina and I worked together on creating an idea for the art style. We decided that a cartoon low poly style worked best for the level environment, while a cartoon low mid poly style would feel better for the characters, so they're more detailed. Here are some Miro boards we took into consideration character style and environment styles. Communication was a strong pillar of this project, and we collaborated with each other through Miro boards, Trello boards, and group meetings. We would also use whiteboards to jot down ideas and have Discord calls to discuss progress on our game. I completed a 2D fighter course as well, which allowed me to create a 2D local multiplayer fighting project, which I was able to showcase at the Play My Demo in October. I was also able to add my own character to this, a boxer character, um, which was very unique and had two different attacks. I used an online learning course to learn about advanced particle systems using Niagara effects. This was a long-term course I've been working on from the start of the year and been working through slowly, but it's really built my VFX skills and my familiarity with materials and textures and how they can be used. This has really helped my game feel for my mechanics. I also participated in the Global Game Jam in February with Scott Meakin and Liang Ku to create a bubble first-person shooter game. The game was called Bubblegum, and the objective was to destroy the bubble enemies and turrets. The theme of the game jam was bubbles, and I was a technical designer working on the shooting mechanics, grappling hook mechanics, and dashing mechanics. I was able to revisit first-person shooter mechanics because of this, and it allowed me to refine my skills and do more efficient code this time around. I was the technical designer on this. I also have an upcoming game jam on the 25th of April, which will be themed around 2D, and this will really benefit my portfolio. I've also attended many networking events, such as the October Play My Demo, the Belfast Media Festival, where there were some game talks, the Ulster University Anniversary Festival, which had talks from game studios as well. I attended the November and February Play My Demos, where I was able to play test and show off my games as well, such as Bubblegum and Slime and Slime. And I also went to the Ulster University Careers Fair in February, where they had a panel conversation between game studios, including Buck Egypt. Reflecting on my work this year, I've developed and improving on real technical skills for gameplay mechanics, group work communication through professional practices such as workflows, task allocation, and organized meetings, improving in other generalist game designer roles, learning how to manage time effectively and independent online learning, and networking and becoming a working cog within the industry and attending industry events. There are also aspects I would have done differently too. I would have worked in more group projects to collaborate more and participated in more game jams for more work in my portfolio. This year of independent study has given me a great advantage for progressing in the final year, and I will be able to develop my skill set tremendously because of this year. I have added to my portfolio many different games and gained a whole year of experience in technical design, which will benefit me in the future. I also see my own growth, and I'm much more confident myself as a programmer. Thank you very much for listening.